Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Idanyatashi purvakshaha. Dalita Hiranyakashipu Anubhinga Keshavadhita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to our Friday evening Srimad Bhagavatam class. The week went by pretty fast, right? We were just talking about Kunti Maharani's prayers, and here we are again, which is good. So we will continue on with our wonderful and exciting reading of Kunti Maharani's prayers to Lord Sri Krishna. And what chapter of Bhagavatam is that? Out with your notepads. Which canto and which chapter? And my pranams to those of you who are watching us on Facebook, as well as to all of you who are here. So, which chapter and which canto? Do we have something on the chat here? I see one answer on the chat. And Sadhana Mataji says 1.8, and so does Vaishana Mataji. That is fantastic. And Aruni also says that, so at least on that point we are good. And so let's just then get ready, and we'll go to chapter number 8 and do verse number 23 today after these prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. All right, so let's get going and look at verse number 23 from the prayers of Maharani Kunti. And so we had her offer obeisances to the Lord. And the previous 2 weeks we read about that. And now let's see what Kunti Maharani has to say. So coming up on a screen close to you are the prayers from Queen Kunti. Yatha Hṛṣīkeśa khalena Devakī Kaṁsena ruddhati chiram sucharpita Vimochitaham cha sahatmaja vibho Tvayeva nathena muhurvipatgana Yatha Hṛṣīkeśa khalena Devakī Kaṁsena ruddhati chiram sucharpita Vimochitaham cha sahatmaja vibho Tvayeva nathena muhurvipatgana Yatha Hṛṣīkeśa khalena Devakī Kaṁsena ruddhati chiram sucharpita Vimochitaham cha sahatmaja vibho Tvayeva nathena muhurvipatgana. Very, very beautiful verse by Kunti Maharani, and lot of new Sanskrit words for us. Yatha, as it were. Hṛṣīkeśa, master of the senses. Khalena is by the envious. Devakī, the mother of Sri Krishna. Kaṁsena, King Kaṁsa. Ruddha is imprisoned. Ruddha. Ati chiram, for a long time. Shucha arpita, distressed. Vimochita, released. Aham cha, also myself. Sa ha atma ja, along with my children. Vibho, O great one. Tvaya eva, by your lordship. Nathina, as the protector. Muhuhu, constantly. Vipat ganat, from a series of dangers. So nice new words. So when we say Hṛṣīkeśa, what does that mean? Tell me, please, Mataji. Master of senses, Virabha Parami Mataji, Sukuma Radhe. Fantastic. And if I say that something is happening constantly, what does that mean? In Sanskrit, Muhuhu, says Sukuma Radhe Mataji. Munun, I like that. Muhuhu, says Vindhyavali Mataji. All right. And then if something happens for a very long time, what is that? Atichiram. Atichiram. Right? And in the 12th canto, in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Bhavami na chirat partha, maya veshita chetasam. Na chirat means not a long time, which means quickly. Right? So he's saying, you surrender unto me and you'll quickly achieve me. And here, atichiram, for a long time. Right? Okay, and somebody is distressed. What is one of the words that you can use from today's verse to tell and describe that somebody is distressed? Shucha arpita, shucha arpita. Very nice. And if somebody gets released from that distress, somebody is released, what do you say? Vimochita, says Aruni Mataji, and let's see who agrees with that. All right. And what's the name of Mother of Krishna? Devakī, Devakī, Devakī. Very nice. Okay. So now let's look at the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O Hṛṣīkeśa, master of the senses and lord of the lords, we have released your mother Devakī, who was long imprisoned, right? And we have seen the word for imprisoned was Ruddha. Ruddha. And we said long is Atichiram. So for a very long time, right, she was imprisoned. So you have released your mother Devakī, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kaṁsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers. Muhu is constant, you all told, and Vipat Gana, from a series, right? Gana, one after the other, collection of, Vipada. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Devakī, the mother of Krishna and the sister of King Kaṁsa, was put into prison along with her husband Vasudeva, because the envious king was afraid of being killed by Devakī's eighth son, Krishna. He killed all the sons of Devakī who were born before Krishna, but Krishna escaped the danger of child slaughter because he was transferred to the house of Nanda Maharaj, Lord Krishna's foster father. Kunti Devi, along with her children, was also saved from a series of dangers. But Kunti Devi was shown far more favor because Lord Krishna did not save the other children of Devakī, whereas he saved the children of Kunti Devi. This was done because Devaki's husband Vasudeva was living, whereas Kunti Devi was a widow, and there was no one to help her except Krishna. The conclusion is that Krishna endows more favor to a devotee who is in great dangers. Sometimes he puts his pure devotees in such dangers because in that condition of helplessness, the devotee becomes more attached to the Lord. The more the attachment is there for the Lord, the more success is there for the devotee. What a nice formula, right? Success of a devotee is directly proportional to his attachment to Krishna, right? That's why one of the offenses to chanting the holy name of the Lord is to maintain material attachments despite having been told so many times not to do so, right? Because as long as we have material attachment, then our attachment to Krishna is not going to be 100% complete. Okay, so very nice a verse. Yet again, another of the jewels coming out from the lotus mouth of Kunti Maharani. And so she starts the prayer, right? She starts the prayer by saying that Lord is Prakrite Param Namasya, right? So she's offering her obeisances to one who is beyond the modes of material nature, right? And then the Antar Bahir Avastitam. So she also tells him that you are inside and you are outside, you are everywhere, right? Sarvatragam. And then she goes on and says that although you are there everywhere, and also although right now you are standing in front of so many people in this world because you have come here, but people are not able to see you. And why they are not able to see you? Krishna himself says, Avajananti mamura manushim tanumashvita param bhavam na jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. And this is from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 11. So there he's saying that Avajananti mamura, those who are muras, right, the foolish, they cannot see me. And so who are the foolish? And so Kunti Maharani, in her prayers to Lord Krishna, is saying that Maya hi javani kachanam, right? So she says that Maya puts a curtain in front of the people who are materially attached. So when you're materially attached, that's all you will see. You won't see anything else, right? If you put a cake in a room, and then you put many books in that room, and then you send a small child in that room and say, okay, go there, tell me what is there. All that he'll remember is the birthday cake there, right? Because that's what the attachment is for. On the other hand, if a devotee goes there, he might see the books also. There is no guarantee that the devotee won't see the cake though, because he might think, positively thinking, he might think of offering the cake to Krishna. So whenever there are attachments, then automatically a curtain falls on our eyes of knowledge. And the proper knowledge is that you are not the body, but you are the soul. And so Kunti Maharani said that people are not able to see you because of that covering, and they are not able to recognize you, just as a foolish person is not able to recognize the real actors in a play. And so that's why they will point all kinds of fingers at Krishna. He did this, he did that. Krishna is a thief. By stealing all the butter, don't you think that Krishna is setting an example that we should steal So this is envy of Krishna. When you are envious of Krishna, then these kinds of thoughts are going to come to you. When you're not envious of Krishna, when you have realized, right, that from where the pay is coming for you. Remember, yesterday we talked about Golu, the servant who was cooking food for his master, and he had realized that everything he gets is from his master, so he was just going to do and say whatever the master says. So when we realize that, then we have no problems if Krishna steals. Why? Because we have understood that everything, aham sarvasya prabhavo, matta sarvam pravartate, iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. So he says that he's the source of everything. So he's also the source, and he's the original, and he's the proprietor, and he's the owner of that butter also. And so, is it a big deal that he picked it up? No, he's just enjoying. And actually, the fact is that the gopis themselves want that Krishna should come to their house and steal, so that they can go one more time to Krishna's house to complain and get to see Krishna one more time. So this is how it happens with the devotees. They want to keep on seeing Krishna again and again, again and again, again and again at some pretext. It's so funny to see in the evenings on Sunday that people are trying to go to their home. They pack their bags and they are about to leave the temple, but they can't. There are 6 stages in which a person leaves the ISKCON Silicon Valley temple. First stage is when he offers obeisances to the Lord and says, I'm going. Then they slowly start moving towards the door. They'll first sit inside the bench. Then they will stop at the gate where Prabhupada's photograph is hanging. Then they'll talk some more. Then they'll come out and then they'll tell the Prabhuji, you go get the car. Because they want to stay a little bit more in the temple. And then, of course, 4th step, they will go to the car. And they'll say, okay, I forgot something. Then they'll come out of the car, bring something. And then they will drive away finally, 5th step. And 6th step is they'll remember in the car that they forgot something. Then they'll ask the husband to turn the car back and they'll come back again. So this is how it happens. You try, and I'm not kidding. This is a fact. It happens with all of us. So because that's that attachment to Krishna which is there, and we don't want to leave Krishna at all, not even for a single moment. And Krishna has got that pulling power. And actually the reality is that Krishna also does not like his devotees to leave and go. As much as we don't want to leave, Krishna also won't want us to let us out of his sight at all. And so for us, it's not a problem because our eyes are not covered with any kind of ajnanata, right? So Kunti Maharani explains that. And then she goes further and says that, what can I say? How can I pray? You are so exalted. You are the one who gives the Brahma Gyan to the Paramhamsas, the exalted men. And I'm just a woman. And her humility puts her, by this act of humility, Kunti Maharani encourages and actually inspires all of us to put her on a very high pedestal where she really belongs. And then she goes and calls him by a few names, right? Krishnaya, Vasudevaya, Gopi, Devakī, Nandanaja, like that. Right? And then she starts to talk about the, she starts to describe Krishna, right? So first she was describing some of the attributes of Krishna. He's invisible, he's pleasant everywhere, he's not visible to people. And then she comes and starts a little bit deeper into the names of Krishna, then starts to describe. After saying that stupid won't see you, but here you are. How are you? Namaha pankajnabhaya, namaha pankajmaline, namaha pankajanetraya, namaha pankajangrihe, right? So you are She describes him so beautifully like that. Right? And in today's verse, what she's doing is that she is describing, she's been describing Krishna all along, and now she is describing Krishna's activities. Okay, so up until now, she was describing Krishna's qualities and form, etc., and his relationships, where he comes from, who are his parents, and so on and so forth. And now in this verse, she is describing his activities. Because why does Krishna come here? What are the two reasons Krishna comes here into this material world? You can unmute yourself and tell me the answer. What are the two reasons why Krishna comes to this material world? Go ahead. Is that a hand raised there, Varshana Mataji?
Yes, Madhuri. He came to establish the dharma and to kill all the demons, to take away the weeds, from the Dharam
Very
Kshetra.
good. Yes. Yes. So those are the two reasons that he comes, right? So when he comes here, he'll be doing that. Those are his activities. And between the two activities that Varshana Mataji listed, he's more interested in the paritranaya sadhuna, in taking care of the devotees. Killing, yeah, he'll do it, For killing and all, even Vishnu can do it, He doesn't have to. But when it comes to relationship with the devotees, and having fun with the devotees, playing with the devotees, enjoying the love of the devotees, love of two mothers that he has. So that Krishna will do himself. Like that. So she is here, she is describing. She's describing that what had happened, right? And she said, Yatha Hṛṣīkeśa khalena Devakī. So Hṛṣīkeśa. So she is describing him as Hṛṣīkeśa. And what did Hṛṣīkeśa do? Khalena Devakī. Right? Khala means envious. Who was envious? Kaṁsa. Kaṁsa was envious, and he was Devaki's brother. And Kaṁsa knew through the Akashvani, through the broadcast services in the sky, he came to know that his sister's son, eighth son of his sister, is going to kill him. And Kaṁsa was very, very attached to his sister. He loved her. He loved her in air, like there was no dearth there. And so when she was married, he was very happy. And as a part of one of the rituals, he was supposed to drive his sister, drive the chariot of his sister and drop her off at her in-laws' place. So Devaki had married Vasudeva, who was also a friend of Kaṁsa, and or acquaintance, I would say. And Kaṁsa was driving the chariot, and that's when he hears that, hey Kaṁsa, this sister to whom you are very lovingly driving her eighth son is going to kill you. And what does Kaṁsa do? What does Kaṁsa do to his loving sister immediately?
He grabs her hair.
He grabs the hair. Exactly. So you see, these kind of relationships with a sister, with a brother, they are just like that. And it is so amazing. It is so amazing that we love, of course, that part is not amazing that we love ourselves. We love ourselves a lot, and our soul. And that's why Prabhupada says several places that if you love yourself so much, then imagine, because you are the soul in this body. And then how much will you love Krishna, who is the soul of the soul, if you love yourself so much like that. So anyway, so because we love ourselves, that's the foremost thing, we love ourselves. It's a known fact. And our own survival till a certain level, And so many times we hear stories of floods came and the mother was holding along to a child very tightly, small child. And then when the final moment comes, whether it's like, is it you or your child? Even the mother lets go of the child to save herself. So it's a very common thing. In fact, it's so interesting that that it can even happen to very exalted people, and which would mean that it can happen to us. Not that we are exalted, but I'm just saying that when it happens to exalted people, very famous exalted people, we have to remember that they are doing it as a play, and we don't understand that, and we start accusing and pointing fingers and criticizing them, if not to others, at least in our mind. We'll say, oh, he did this and he does that, or look at him and he was this and he was that. But they are just playing these parts, and they are telling you these things just to caution you that how much we are entangled with ourselves. We love ourselves. And it said that Janak Maharaj. So we all know that Janak Maharaj, had his kids pretty late in life, right? And Ramchandra ji was the beloved of all the citizens. Okay? So one day when his hair are being made and he's looking in the mirror, Janak Maharaj spots a white hair, a single white hair in his head. So when we spot a single white hair on our head, what do we do?
Pull it out.
We pull it out, right? I will say, where is my black pen? Let me do this. Oh, I need to start going to the beautician now. Oh, look at this. Let me call my friend, ask her how she does it. Right? That is our reaction. Now, Janak Maharaj's reaction was very different. He said, my hair, I have got one white hair. I'm becoming old. Now, Ramchandra ji should start ruling. That was his approach. To that extent was he detached from the kingdom. One single hair. And now I'm not going to name the monarchy who's still sticking to the post, right? But that's it. So, so when Janak Maharaj went and told his courtmen that, this is, I think Ramchandra ji should ascend the throne. And all of them said, oh yes, he's our beloved. We have actually been wanting him to do that. So when they say that, for a very fleeting moment, the thought crosses his mind. And he says that, oh, so you were waiting for me to leave. So you see, when anything happens, we can go to, we love ourselves like that. So, but the love that Kaṁsa had for his sister was Shanabhangur, in a fraction of a second, the love was gone completely. And then her husband, Vasudev, who was a very deep thinker, very balanced, polished man, he convinces through sweet words to Kaṁsa. And he says that, why do you want to kill her? She's not going to kill you in the future. It's only her 8th son who's going to kill. And so you can kill the 8th son. Why do you want to get that blood on your hands of killing a lady, right? You're not supposed to kill some types of people, right? One who's sleeping, one who's old, one who doesn't have a weapon in the hand, one who's a small child, one who's a woman, right? So you don't do that. So why do you want to go and do that? So he convinces him, he's very smart, he convinces him not to do that. Whereas in his heart, he's thinking that when he sees the son of his sister, he will develop some affection for him. And he will, be lenient and let go. But then, he's good. He loved his sister. He agrees. And then Narad Muni goes there and he talks about the Akashvani and he says, oh, the 8th son. And Narad said, okay, so when you were talking about 8, how did you count 8? From the beginning to the end or from the end to the beginning? So you don't know which one is the eighth son. So that confuses Kamsa even more. So he throws his sister into a prison, Ruddha, right? So he imprisons her. And that is what Kunti Maharani is referring to. And she's saying that for a very long time. How long? Because when the first child was born, he killed. The second child was born, he killed, right? So he kept on killing. And so she's telling that you finally rescued your mother from the prison, like that. So yatha Hṛṣīkeśa khalena Devakī Kaṁsena ruddhati chiram sucharpita. And she was distressed, sucharpita. She was very much distressed. And there was a lot of fear that used to come, because imagine a woman who is pregnant and is afraid that the brother will kill, and the brother actually comes and kills the first child in front of her eyes. And then the next time when she is going to have a child, you can imagine the thought processes that she's going through all the time, right? So for us, it would be a very difficult thing to go through. But we know that whenever Krishna takes birth, he will always come through Devakī and Vasudeva. Nobody else can become Devakī. A soul cannot be elevated to the position of Devakī. That position is already occupied. Sorry, no openings, like that. So she's there. She's very, very distressed. So we might think she's very distressed, but when devotees are at that level, right? When devotees are at that level, our soul is at that level of consciousness, they relish, it's all a part. They relish even that fear is something that they relish. It's very difficult for us to understand from our head, from our mundane intellect, that there is no difference between, fear and no fear, and at the spiritual level, because there's no duality. And there is no difference between being with somebody or separated with somebody. So the Devaki, the gopis were very happy, and they enjoyed Krishna's presence when he was there in Vrindavan. And afterwards, when he goes away, they're crying. But even in that crying, there is a happiness. Internally, they feel that, that connection is always there with Krishna. So, so Devaki is going through all that distress. So for the normal human beings, that is complete distress. So she's saying that Kamsena ruddhati charam ati chiram sucharpita, right? And then vimochitaham, right? Then you released. So he released the parents, and then of course not only them. This is her gratitude that is coming out as she describes the activities of Krishna, and she's saying that you released us also. And from so many places. Tvayena nathena muhur vipadgana. Many, many times you have saved us, right? And so, can you tell me, what were the times when Krishna saved them? There's a question that, let me just address that question first. So why did Narad Muni go and tell Kamsa that your sister, the son of your child, is going to kill you? That's the question.
I mean, he said that from the beginning or from the end. I mean, why did he confuse him so much that he had to kill all his sons?
Right, that was the idea, right? The idea was to kill them, right? So Devaki's 6 sons, actually, I'm forgetting the name of they are the sons of one of the sages. And they did something wrong. They laughed at, some other exalted personality. So they were cursed to take birth from the human womb. And so this was nicely arranged by Narad, because Narad Muni is also, Trikaldarshi, he knows what's going to happen in the future. So he comes and says certain things in certain places so that people react to that. And then, things continue along that way. And so all these sons of Devaki are dead, and then later on, Krishna will go bring them to her mother later on, much later on. But in the beginning, they all die because that's how it was a curse, and they had to go through that curse. And so I had brought this topic up when I was talking about yajñārtha, yeah, when I was talking about yajñārtha, that from the yajña santushto. And so when you offer things to the Lord, and what you get is prasadam. And so these six boys, they were dead. They didn't even have chance to suckle their mother's breast, because Kamsa came, immediately killed. And then later on, when Krishna brings them, and he brings them as, because their souls, they have left, their bodies are gone. So he brings them in small bodies so that the mother will still remember as she had seen them. So when he brings the kids back, Devaki is so full of motherly love that she starts to produce milk, and all these boys, they drink that milk. And they say that, nobody had taken milk, right, from Devaki, and then Krishna is saved. And then later on, when Krishna was born, and Devaki suckles her. So any milk that is coming from Devaki's breast afterwards is prasadam, because Krishna has already tasted it in the fun. So all his 6 elderly brothers, they actually get prasadam, Krishna's prasadam. So they're very, very lucky like that. So there's a whole big thing, and that's the beauty of our Vedic scriptures. These stories and these happenstances and these dialogues, they make it so much more interesting. If you look at the other scriptures, most of the other scriptures are monologues, or maybe no log. It's just a do's and don'ts and whatever like that, right? Or one person is constantly speaking. But in our Srimad Bhagavatam, there are stories, there are conversations, and the person who's being addressed, who's being taught, is able to ask questions, and it leads to unfolding of the cabbage, right? Leaf by leaf, that happens like that. And Aruni Mataji is saying that they were meant to take birth and die quickly. Yes, be in the human body for a very short time only, right? And then Sadhana Mataji is saying that, okay, so that was Sadhana and Varshana Mataji both had the same question. And then, yes, and Sadhana Mataji is answering my question that I had asked, that, what were some of the places from where Krishna had saved them, right? So when all does Krishna save? Through one very big and famous pastime of Krishna. Which fire?
Mataji, that house of wax which was made through that when they came out.
So how does Krishna save? How does Krishna save them? Does Krishna save the fire? No. Anybody remember the story from Mahabharata? Lakshagraha.
Mataji, Vidura saves, right?
Yeah. Vidura saves, yeah. Right? So later on, Krishna will eat fire, and we will read that story one of these days while we are doing the pastimes. But two big instances where Krishna comes and saves them is one from Durvasa Muni, when he comes with his 60,000 people, and there is the Akshaya Patra, right? And on that Akshaya Patra, there is that, there's very little of the, food that is left, right? So he eats a little bit, and then everybody in the party of Durvasa Muni is so full that they don't want to eat anything more, right? When they were in the forest. So that's one that straight away comes to our mind, right? And second, of course, is and it'll come in the later verses, when Draupadi's Chir Haran was happening, right? You directly see Krishna's hands over there, right? Like that. So she's saying Muhur Vipat Ganan, and of course, many, many times it has happened like that. Chir Haran Virabhav says that, Draupadi, Sukumal Radhe also said that. So she's saying that many, many times they have done that. Now, one thing that we need to note over here is that she says in the very first thing that Yata Hṛṣīkeśa Khalena Devakī. Hṛṣīkeśa. So she is addressing Krishna as Hṛṣīkeśa. Right? Hṛṣīk means senses.
Senses.
Plus Ish means controller. So Krishna is the controller of our senses. Right? And it begins from the very beginning. And that is that he has made this nice arrangement in this material world for us envious souls who did not want to engage in the service of the Lord, but instead wanted to satisfy our senses, independent of Krishna. So Krishna has given us 8,400,000 ways in which we can satisfy our senses. If you don't want to do anything, if you just want to hang around, then you have an option. You can become a tree, right? If you want to eat meat, you can become one of the 2 million animal species that are there, right? If you like to swim, you can become a fish, right? So in each species, you will satisfy your senses in one way or the other, right? But that is not what we should do. We should be utilizing our senses in the service of Krishna. And there is a very nice verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I'm going to bring up here as soon as I figure out how to share my screen. And here. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam Hṛṣīkeśa Hṛṣīkeśa sevanam bhaktiruchyate. And in the translation says, and this is something that actually Narad Muni says in the Narad Pancharatra. So therefore 5 consecutive nights, Narad Muni, instructs Lord Shiva. And so those instructions are called as Narad Pancharatra. And so Narad Pancharatra was quoted by Sanatana Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is repeating also that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service into the Supreme, there are 2 side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So material designation starts from the first designation that I am this body. And then we talk about this designation that I am this body, which means that I am an American, I am an Indian, like that, right? So then I am an Indian or I am American. So I will do something good to satisfy the senses of the Americans. I won't do anything for the Indians. I am an Indian. I will do something for the Indians. I won't do anything for the Americans. So that upadhi is there. I am something. I am this. I am that. I am, a lady. I am a dog. I'm a cat. So on and so forth. So sarva upadhi vinirmuktam. So when gets, cleansed and cleared of all such designation, and only one designation remains. And that designation is that I am a servant of the Lord. That's the only designation that remains. And also what happens is that when you are doing devotional service, then the very act of devotional service cleanses us and purifies us. Why? Because in the Ishopanishad, Krishna is described as, asna vinam. He does not have any veins and so on and so forth, right? And then there's that he's also described as antiseptic and propolytic. I think I'm pronouncing that word, slightly wrong. But basically, so antiseptic is that you already got the disease and now you have to apply Dettol or something like that, which is an antiseptic. So Krishna is like that. When you come in touch with Krishna, if you contracted the disease of the material world, then you will be cleared of that disease, right? And prophylactic is you take something in prevention, as a prevention that, okay, the cold season is coming, so start taking vitamins, right? So Krishna is also the vitamin in your life. If you continue to do devotional service, because he is a prophylactic, then your chances of getting affected by the disease of Maya are gone, like that. So these are two changes that are going to happen in us when we take care of serving the senses of Hṛṣīkeśa. He's the master of the senses, right? He's also Govinda. So he gives pleasure to our senses, and he'll give you both kinds of pleasures. He'll give you material pleasures by giving you such a big variety in which you can enjoy material things. But when you turn your face towards Krishna, he will also then cleanse you so that your spiritual senses wake up, and then you get the real enjoyment. Otherwise, in this material world, there is padam padam yat vipadam natesham. So what's the big deal if Kunti Maharani had to face all these? All of us are going to face this, because this is a place of vipada. It's a place of complete and abject misery that we have. Okay? So now we have a few minutes. I need to get going someplace, so I'll have to stop at 8 o'clock today. But please, let's use the 8 minutes gainfully. You can raise your hands so that everybody gets a chance to ask and share reflections, questions, anything that comes to your mind about Kunti Maharani, anything you heard. And I see one hand raised, and that is Virabhav Mataji. So come. Let us know.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, I had a question. So Krishna is like the supreme God, right? And everything emanates from him. So why love? I mean, why is he conquered by love? Like, why that? Because everything emanates from him, right? So he can control that too. So why?
He doesn't want to be controlled. Why do you want to be controlled? There's so much of rasa in that love. There's so much of rasa that when you really, really love somebody, then you actually take everything, right? Then you take everything from them, and you don't feel bad about anything at all. Anything at all, Love is like that, right? You could be a vice president in a company organization with 600,000 people reporting underneath you, and when you come back home, your son makes you into a horse and he climbs on your back. Why does the father do that? Because there is a joy in that. There is a joy in that surrender. So, and that is why the devotees, who love and reach that prema state, there is a joy over there. There is a joy in even taking the beating from them. Like how when we come to chapter 9, when we'll hear about Bhishma leaving, and there his relationship with Krishna is described. He was in the relationship, his rasa was Veer rasa. As a warrior, he was related to Krishna. So what do warriors do? They kill each other, or they will injure each other with their weapons, right? So Prabhupada there describes that sometimes lovers, when they are very intense in love, they will bite each other. So, and in that bite and in that pain that comes from the bite, there is a pleasure. So it's a very high level of love, which we can't understand. In Shikshastakam, in the last verse, what does it say? That I have surrendered unto you. It doesn't matter even if you're lampat. Lampat means that you're a debauchee. You are spending time with me, and then as soon as you're done with me, you talk to me in the morning, and evening you're with some other woman, and the night you're with some other woman. That's a debauchee. And they are saying, it doesn't matter to me, because the love has reached that stage. So similarly, when you love Krishna with so much, Krishna reciprocates. And because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, so he has to enjoy. And this is the best enjoyment you will get is not from taking, but from giving. And so it applies to Krishna also. So, he takes all our services and all our love, but then in return, he becomes conquered by us, because love is like that. Love will conquer. You would have seen, like, sometimes there are so many videos on YouTube of small kids and they're scolding their grandparents, and they go on and they look so cute, and the grandfather's very happy. And the same grandfather who would have taught manners and good manners and proper speaking style, and would have taught his son or daughter to behave properly and talk properly to me, the same grandfather, when he looks at the grandchild and the grandchild is talking nonsense and they're just laughing and they're just smiling, they just love. Because you always love the interest more than you love the principle. So like that.
Okay, Mataji.
You know,
Thank
allied
you.
to that, I have a question. So if everything is Krishna, so even Kama, Krodha, everything, Maya, it is all part of Krishna, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, if everything is part of Krishna, then why is it that it has to be conquered? And I mean, it sounds like a stupid question, but what I'm saying is if everything does come from Krishna, it comes from the Supreme, then, isn't it all
Yes, it
part
should be,
of
there should be no
this
difference between Krodha and Kama, right? So why are we told to stay away from Krodha, right? Krodh, Kam,
Right.
Lobh, you say, oh, you stay away from them, stay away from them. And
Right.
but they
So
are all
where
Krishna,
is
right?
it coming from if it's not part of
Right.
that love
Chapter
that we all
15,
want to
yeah.
aspire to? Yeah.
Yeah, it comes in from chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita. It says, Urdhamulam adha shakham ashwatham prahurabhyayam. So this world is a reflection. So what does reflection actually mean? What does reflection mean? Does reflection mean that the reflections are always opposite, right? Upside down. Like it actually talks about a tree which is upside down. Urdhamulam adha shakham. Right? So the branches are upwards and the roots are upwards and the branches are down. Is it like that? The branches upwards, roots are down? No. It's just a way of describing this material world. And they are saying that, whatever happens up there in the spiritual world, here it is the opposite. It's the opposite. And now we have our stunted intellect that we are able to understand because we are living entities, which means that we are engaged in a body. We are souls inside a body, embodied living entities. So we've got a body. So now this body is containing us and we will be able to understand only so much. And so everything over here is a perverted reflection. Prabhupada says perverted, it's spoiled. Like when a reflection, if you're looking at your reflection in a river, if the water is very calm, the reflection is perfect. Now if somebody throws a ripple into the water, it throws a thrown into the water and there are ripples, your reflection will go like this, right? So here everything is perverted to the extent that something which is the highest in Krishna Loka becomes the lowest over here. Again, going by the principle of reflection, right? So if this is a pencil and the reflection of the pencil will be like this, right? So the tip of the pencil is the top, but in the reflection, it's at the bottom. That is why parikiya bhav. Parikiya bhav is having an affair with a married man. Parikiya bhav, loving somebody who belongs to somebody else, is the highest bhava in Krishna Loka. The gopis are all married, but they run after Krishna. It's the highest bhava over there. But here, you could be put into jail for doing that. So it's a perverted reflection. So up there in the spiritual sky, even Krodh and Moh and Lobh, all these are transcendental. And so you enjoy them also transcendentally. And it's very difficult for us to understand that how does it happen? So we just go by what the Shastras say and say, okay, Krishna, I know my intellect is stunted, but Shastras come from you. And we read about that in the Bhagavad Gita, that they come from his breathing, right? He breathes and whatever is written there. And the Shastras come from Krishna. And we are not able to understand that, right? So what we see as Krodha, what we see as Kama, what we see as Lobha, they are just perverted forms of that. And because they are perverted, so we have to now get rid of all of those bad things over here as a practice and then go towards pure love of God. And once you get into the pure love of God and go back to Vrindavan, then you can fight as much as you like with Krishna, depending on your Swarup and whatever your relationship with Krishna is, like gopis. Or even Radharani, when she gets angry, she gives it good to Krishna, right? She'll say, speak things, which one? Varshana Mataji for the last one, really quickly. Let's go
Yes,
ahead.
Mataji. Mataji, when we read 15th chapter, Udhamulam Adashakha, a slight understanding I got when we were discussing that the our root is shown above, and the you see the stems and the leaves are down, and I felt that you see our roots are up with him, and we are you see developing.
Okay.
I was just thinking that way.
Okay,
So
good.
is it
good.
a correct correct
It's not a
thinking?
correct interpretation. It's not an accurate interpretation of that verse, because the verse is basically saying that, if that, because Prabhupada explains that, and he says, where can you find such a tree in this world? How to understand that tree? And he says, if you go by the bank of a river and there's a tree there, then you will see there's a tree up there. So that tree is the real tree, which is the spiritual world. And then this material world is the reflection. So it's all there. So the exact meaning of that is there, but to say the roots itself are there in Golok Vrindavan is not a right interpretation of that. But it's a nice thought. It's a nice thought to understand that my roots are with Krishna, and if you got that, then that's a fantastic thing. So on that happy note, I'll take leave from you, and tomorrow we're doing some Bhagavad Gita reading. Sukharupa Mataji would have announced it. I don't know. I don't have all the details of that. But all that I know is it starts a little bit early for those who are in India, 5:30 or 6 or something like that of my time, right? So we'll see you then there, and then we'll meet on Sunday for our chapter 12, Sanskrit. Okay. Vanchikalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Premanande Hari Bol.
Thank you,
Thank you
Shraddha
so
Mata.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thanks,
Thank
Mataji.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Mataji.
Thank you for joining.